Hello. My name is Aniruddha. Welcome to my YouTube channel. As the title for this video suggests, this one is a bit of a speed sketch. I'm going to try and complete it in around 30 minutes. In an attempt to keep the video concise and short, I have sped it up to double of its actual speed. Before putting down my watercolor, I want to put down some very rough pen lines just to give me a basic structure with regards to perspective and, more importantly, proportion. The reference image we are using for today's sketch is from somewhere in northern Ethiopia. I got this photo from Flickr and I'm using it under a Creative Commons license. If I can find the original link, I will post it down in the description for this video. In the description, you will also find a list of materials that I have used in this demo. As I have a limited amount of time, I am skipping the lightest values and I am starting from the mid-tone values. As I always do with regards to the mid-tones, I am trying to find a large connected shape that I can link together. The paint I am using is at coffee consistency. I intend to connect the wall on the left to the shadow it is casting, to the vegetation atop it, to the lady standing in the shade, all the way to the row of houses on the right side of the street. I want all these elements to be one shape. I realize that the blue I just put down is a little bit jarring. It doesn't mesh with the rest of the image yet. I'm putting that blue hoping that it will mix with the yellow on the paper rather than mixing that green on my palette. I'm now at milk consistency, adding some variation and depth to that wash. I'm using my tissue paper to lift some paint where those orange fruits will come later. I know many painters who like to put in their human figures after the rest of the scene is complete. But I like my figures to be connected to the scene. If you're enjoying this video, kindly consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. I have a lot of exciting plans lined up for this month. Notice how I'm using the side of my brush to create those marks and get a broken brush stroke as a result. On those buildings in the distance, I would like my shadows to be a little fuzzy. If the paint there is still wet, I should be able to get that. I am now using my 1.0 tip Uniball black gel pen. The reason I love using this gel pen is it works perfectly fine on moist paper. I don't have to wait till the paper is completely dry. I'm using my lines to better define the elements in the scene, but at the same time I want these pen marks to remain sketchy. Each of us have a uniqueness to the way we create our marks, just like our handwriting. That's how I like to think about my line work in such line and wash watercolors. I'm now using thicker, darker paint with the objective of giving each element in the scene a sense of form and dimension. I'm also trying to lift some paint in parts that I think would be nice if they're a little lighter. Although I must add that the paper I'm using is not very conducive to lifting. An interesting thing I noticed in this scene is that the yellow of the wall is kind of reflecting in the underside of that vegetation there. So although the vegetation on the underside is darker, it still has a warmer hue to it. Observe the subtle variety and variations of the greens I use. Notice the amount of life it brings to the scene. This is why it is important to learn to mix your own greens. If you like the way I sketch, and would like longer, more in-depth tutorials, might I suggest you check out my offerings over on Skillshare. There is a link in the description that will give you 1 month free access to the platform. Again, using darker, thicker color to give some volume to that figure there. Going to use my fingernail to scrape out some branches in that vegetation. Getting the timing right for this technique is essential. It's something that I'm still learning. I'm also going to mix some of my rose red with a white gouache and splash it into that vegetation while it's still wet. This is to indicate some flowers there. At this point, I'm done with the larger shapes and I'm focusing on the smaller details. It's best to slow down at this stage, even with the 30-minute deadline looming large. We are now almost at the finish line with this sketch. I'm using my fude nib pen to add some bold lines. In real time, this was at about the 28-minute mark. Now this would have been the perfect time for me to stop, to thank you all for joining me in this video and to ask you to share it with your friends who you think might find it useful. But I did not stop, and that ended up being a decision that I regret. At this point, I had put down my brushes. It was only 40-45 minutes later that I came back and decided to make a few additions. The first couple of additions are mostly inoffensive. Just some far off vegetation and some electricity poles. For some strange reason, I felt the need to put in lighter values into the sketch. The same lighter values that I had initially decided to skip. Now, putting in lighter values after all the darker ones are done is not an orthodox practice in watercolor. On my Instagram feed, I had seen Mark Foley doing it in one of his little reels. And since watching that, I wanted to give it a go myself. I saw this as my opportunity to experiment. But as I was adding that gradient to the ground, I felt that the sketch lost some of its sketchy feeling. I mean, now looking back, each of those ochre marks just make me cringe a little. Oh well, live and learn. Hope to see you in the next one.